Hi, it's Tuesday night at 6:30, so it's time again for what we're reading. Tonight I have some very professional, well-read librarians that I'm a little intimidated by actually because they have researched this, they know their stuff, and they're going. But I saw their books and they're really fabulous books, so this is going to be great. I've got Jenny tonight from East Grand Rapids. Wave, Jenny. And I've got Katie from our service center. Now, Jenny is the youth librarian at East Grand Rapids, so she usually reads the kiddo books. So tonight she's talking for the most part about grown-up books. So, Katie, what's the first grown-up book you want to tell us about?
Let's see. I can start off with Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Life and Love from Dear Sugar, which Dear Sugar is Cheryl Strayed. That came out later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was kind of like a Dear Abby advice column that was ran. And then at the end, they decided to just print some of her best responses that she had. And one
Wait a
thing
minute. So when she was writing this column, no one who wrote in with the questions knew it was Cheryl Strayed?
No one knew. So Cheryl Strayed was kind of blowing up at the time. She, she was writing wild and really, I think even like the movie was coming out. So she just was blowing up. But so people were getting advice from Cheryl Strayed this whole time and they never knew. But then of course, when you go back through and you read it, it's, if you were suspicious, you might catch on.
But no one was asking her what kind of boots to buy or.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I now own the book. That's how good it was. But I actually originally listened to this on audio, which I love because I got to hear her actually share her responses. And, the cadence is just different. You really get to hear it the way they wanted it to be read. And one thing I loved about this is I consider it like it's a meditation. Like she just, I would hear like she would read out the question, obviously, and then I'd be like, oh my goodness, I don't even know what I would tell someone in this situation, or I'm actually in this situation, or I feel this with my family. And her words were just so spot on.
Really?
It was, yeah. So it just was like healing to listen to it and to read it in that way. And yeah, that's why this is definitely a book that I will read again and portions of it again and again. Yeah.
Oh, how fun. I'm going to check that out because when I see one of those Dear whoever or Slate or something on the computer, it's like my guilty pleasure. I love
it. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. Or even like, let me see what you think that they should do. And definitely point for point, this just everything she said, I just was like above and beyond. I wouldn't have come up with that answer. It was she's like so gracious or so matter of fact. I think she told like one writer. Then this spoke to me as somebody who like studied writing and often has writer's block. But basically she had some really like hard love truth to a person who was like, oh, I just like can't get myself motivated to write. And she was like, get over yourself and go write. So yeah, everything different ones spoke to me along the way.
I would imagine just from reading Wild, she'd be very straight talking.
Oh yeah.
Go right. Well, so now Jenny is our youth librarian.
I have to say, I have to add one thing because this book, I have purchased more copies of this book for like friends and family than any other book in my life. Like I love this book. I own it and I've bought at least 3 copies for other people. And it's so readable, it's just like short chapters, wonderful questions, and her answers are usually like 2 or 3 pages. You can get through like 3 or 4 of these letters in a night, like before falling asleep before bed. It's just a perfect book to like read before bed, and it's lighthearted, but it's compassionate and moving. And yeah, that was just unforgettable. You have to read it, Penny. It's great.
I think there's something about that format too. I mean, I like an epistolary, I can never say that correctly, a novel that's just letters, like Guernsey literary potato chips.
Yeah.
Or just letters back and forth. It's something about reading that form. I mean, I used to get letters on paper in my mailbox when I was in college. I don't think I have since then, or at least definitely not since email. And there's something about reading a letter that I just miss.
Yeah. Well, and Katie and I were talking before this, like how we both have kind of like COVID brain when we're reading these days, and it's difficult to focus. And I think we're not alone in that. I feel like the whole world has COVID brain a bit. And this is the book for that. Like Tiny Beautiful Things.
Again.
Yeah, Tiny Beautiful Things.
Okay.
It's Cheryl Strayed, but I mean, it's an older book, so I'm glad we're bringing it up again because people might not have heard about it in the last, 10 years or so. I think it came out in 2012, but yeah, it is just perfect for those little, short slices of wonderful, like nourishing reading. So yeah. Yay. So Can I just share a kid's book because I'm a kid's librarian? Okay, I'm going to share one real quick, and then I'll move on and I'll introduce another book. And I know it's one that Katie and I both read. But this one real quick. So it's called What the Road Said, and it's by Cleo Wade. I'll show it to you one more time. The reason I wanted to mention this is because when I graduated from high school, I had no less than 3 copies of Oh, the Places You'll Go purchased for me. And you probably both had that same experience too, I can imagine. Yeah. This book blows that book out of the water. It's so much better. It's like any advice you need in life, you can get out of this book. Like, you know how people say everything you need to know about life you learn in kindergarten? Like, this book sums everything up you need to know as a human in a picture book for kids. I loved it so much. I read it when it came into the building, and I started crying like out on the desk in the library. And someone was like, "What's wrong?" Like, this book is so good. And I bought a copy like right then and there. Like, excused myself and logged into Amazon and purchased a copy for my son. And I wrote him a note on the back page about how important this book is. Yeah, like, read this book.
I'm so inspired. I'm like,
even buy it. It's so good. It's like this. So this person at the beginning of the story asks a question of the road, and they say, "Where does the road lead?" And the road responds to this child and says, "Why don't you be a leader and go find out?" And this kid goes on a journey and asks the road lots of questions like, "What if I fall? What if I just stop moving? I feel stuck. What if I take the wrong path? What if I need help?" All these things. What if I get scared? All these things that are kind of like metaphors for the big challenges that you'll face in your life. And the answer that the road gives this child on their journey and through this picture book is just perfect. I loved it. It was just,
who gives better advice, Cleo Wade or Cheryl Strayed?
This is for kids, so I would say they're equal, right? For a child's maturity level, this is like equivalent to Cheryl Strayed beautiful advice. So yeah, I feel like they're both batting 1,000. But anyway,
we are recommending instruction manuals tonight for life.
Yes. So no more of that. Oh, the places you'll go. I mean, that's a good one, but this one's better.
Yeah. So Cheryl Strayed was for me, and I'm going to go by Cleo Wade for me and my daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll share it.
Write a note in it. Don't be afraid to do that. I think everyone should do at least one of those to their children so they have that forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now that I've gotten my kids' book suggestion out of the way, Kitty and I both read Trick Mirror by Gia Tolentino. So you haven't read it yet, Penny?
No, look, the cover is a mirror.
It's cool, right? So cool. Yeah, great cover art. I think it drew me in. It's called Trick Mirror Reflections on Self-Delusion. And once again, this is good for COVID brain because it's essays. So I want to say there are 9 essays that she writes. She writes very intellectual, dense writing. One of the essays is about her relationship with the internet and social media. And I felt like I related to that a lot, and how social media is a lot about like self-promotion, and you can feel like you're being an advocate or supporting a cause that you really believe in, but you also are sort of like you're not altruistic 100% in what you're doing and what you're posting. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like social media in and of itself is
A
social.
vanity exercise.
Yes, it's an exercise in vanity. Thank you, Penny. Yeah. So, it's how you delude yourself with your good intentions and what you believe in, and how, the things that you may think about yourself may not be 100% true. And it just really dives deep into that. Katie, do you remember an essay that you really loved? That was the one I loved most that stuck out to me. But
yes, I really liked that one. The essay Always Be Optimizing as well.
Yes.
I really liked that one. I think so I was reading
sure I'm
this
not
book
always
alongside another kind of cyber critique at the same time. And so I hope that this was her, but really it was the whole package. But I think she kind of, if I were to be receiving her essays into my soul, she kind of called me on some things
yes.
Virtue signaling, and that sort of branding myself. But then I also felt relief reading it as well, because I was able to see through, when she really laid it out for me, what's going on online. I realized I was not made for the internet. I don't owe the internet anything, or any of my relationships on there anything. So that I'm a millennial, it has been ingrained into me in ways that I don't even realize until reading these essays. I was the same way that you might be I don't have to respond to a text within 5 minutes. It's also I don't have to be completely, even we say a lot about how if this isn't getting too into it, but my social media, it's okay also for it to be a place where I am completely positive, and there's authenticity, but I don't have to share all of my life on there as well. It's okay if people look at my social media and they think that
it's a highlight reel.
Yeah, that it's a highlight reel, because I get to see what it is. And maybe that goes down to what are your motivations online and everything. But it's kind
but
of
she makes you question your motives
Yes.
through every essay. And it's not all just about the internet. One of them is about, and you mentioned being a millennial. I am too. And she is a millennial author, and she talks about her millennial journey, the one about the 7 scams.
Mhm.
What was that one called? I think I wrote that one down because it was so good. It was, the story of a generation and 7 scams. And it was essentially about,
I get goosebumps even thinking about it again.
what millennials lived through, Amazon and the election. And there is some talk of that very tense political climate. She wrote the book, I think in 2018. So what we were all living through at that time, it was just a wonderful read, and super intellectual and really smart. And I just felt like a smarter human when I finished an essay, and I was I need to read another one, or maybe reread that last one again.
I think I was also struck by not only her intelligence, but her fearlessness in her writing. And I think part of that is because she really is almost exactly my age. And so I felt weird. I don't know.
She's super vulnerable, right? She talks about a lot of really personal, intimate things.
And being able to relate to it, and also being wow, I don't know. I had almost an existential crisis for a second, where I was oh, okay, there are people my age who are New York staff writers, and I just I don't know. I had kind of a come to Jesus moment with my age, but just I don't know. It was really cool to read it.
It was a great book. I highly recommend it. I hope others out there will explore it and learn a little bit more about themselves and their generation. And I think you'll feel less alone, right? You'll know that, and it's a lot about feminism too. I think it's a book really written for women as well. I learned a lot about
the attacks the hashtag girl boss.
Yeah, that was such a good chapter. Oh, so smart and just fascinating. Yeah. So
I want to take a minute to say hi to JC Cooper, who just commented all my favorite books and 3 heart emojis. And okay, so for me, as someone who is 56, am I going to like this book?
I think you would like parts of it, especially the always be optimizing, because it's about always be optimizing, meaning how women need to constantly be a better version, like fitter, stronger, faster, healthier, continuously looking younger. It's sort of about that piece of our culture and how we're taught that. So yeah, I think any woman especially would really. What do you think, JC? Or I'm sorry, what do you think, Katie?
Oh, well, I'll have to ask JC what she thinks.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry, I meant to ask you, Katie, but I said JC.
No, yeah, I actually that's why I mentioned that essay, is because I kind of had this wow, what if I just exist? What if, what if my 5-year plan includes really just mental health goals instead of these outward signs of achievement? And what does achievement mean? What does it mean to be a successful person, or especially woman? All of that.
Yeah. So you might not love the whole book, Penny, but I think you'll certainly relate to parts of it.
Yeah.
I read a headline, and I didn't read the whole article, so I can't tell you where, when, or how, but it reminds me of you two in a book, and maybe I'm off base, but it said no one wants to be normal anymore.
Yeah.
Meaning no one's content with being, I'm an average this, I'm middle this, and I'm great, I'm having a good life. They have to be superstars and stand out. They want to stand out. Everyone wants to stand out. No one wants to be one of the community anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Not for good or ill, but that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. That's a big thing to unpack too. I feel like that's a lot to do with American culture, right? Like what's caused that? What kind of systemic things have been in place to create that individualism? So yeah, I think, and there's a lot in this book, in these essays, that speaks to that specifically. So yeah.
Jenny, I think at the start you used the word dense.
Yeah.
The word that comes to mind again. It's good for COVID brain, but it's also good for reading an essay, putting the book down, and coming back to it.
Yeah. That's the thing. If you like literary fiction, if you read Jonathan Franzen, but you find yourself with COVID brain and you need to pick up something that's really smart, intellectual, fascinating, wonderful, will make you a smarter human, this is a great book. And you can read it in, a 15-page essay, which is really nice. So yeah. And I love that, the rise of the essay novel. I feel like those are really popular these days, and they're very digestible.
Yes. Although when people come into the branch and say, recommend a book to me, saying this one's really dense is usually not.
That's a turn off. But if you're like, wait, it's short essays. Yeah.
They immediately walk.
Right.
Yeah. Save it for the overachievers who want something that will challenge them. But I really think anybody could get something out of it. Yeah.
Now you two have another one that is a graphic novel.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce that one, Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, that one is Good Talk. Let me make sure I get it in frame, by Mira Jacob. And I actually read this one specifically for our book talk tonight, and I was just so excited to get into it, and it did not disappoint. And what is unique about this one, in terms of it being a graphic novel, is that it really is kind of this blend of photography with sort of Mira Jacob did this is her drawing of herself, but it is the only drawing she has of herself from this age. And so it just represents her at this age, which is maybe 14. And this is her mother right here. I'm getting my fingers But so that is just always the picture she uses of her mother. And they're putting these different situations. So I'm kind of talking about just the format of the book before I get into the content. But the way that the dialogue is so dynamic and it moves throughout that I had to do double takes and I had to really study these and make sure that her drawings weren't actually changing, because the expressiveness of her drawings would just take on the emotions of the words that she was sharing. And I thought it was just such a unique take. I mean, the tagline on it is a memoir in conversations. So we really just see these kind of cardboard cutouts having these conversations throughout. And it, the content of it all sort of has to do with her identity as a first generation Indian American growing up in New York City. And especially that translates later into coming into like 2016 through 2018, what started happening like in her family, but it goes through, there's the present, and then she does flashbacks to her childhood where you can see what she's experiencing there as well, what she has always experienced as an American in America with darker skin. And for me, obviously, not necessarily having my own like background of experience with which to relate to her, I felt like this was just a portal for a moment where I could jump into her experience, see things from her eyes. And there were moments where I was really like, yeah, like as if I already had all the answers that she was trying to share. And then there were other moments where I really was like, oh, I feel very convicted right now and change, that sort of thing. But it still was just like, I just felt very close to her as I was reading it while also enjoying the art and the story and everything she had to offer.
I have read this one too, Katie, and
Yeah.
I don't read a lot of graphic novels. You know, that's not really my generation either. It's not doing, and it's not something I would grab. But I was recommended this one by someone I trusted, and I loved it. It was really, really good, and I like the art. It feels like art, not cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you're saying, because it's real photography.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very nice. And so it starts out, though, about a talk she's having with her child.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She, in the present day, as an Indian American, she is married to a white Jewish man, and then they have a child together. And it was so heartbreaking because he's asking these really, so that was where I could read it as a mother and be like, oh my goodness, what do you do when your child asks you questions that he is old enough to ask, but he may not be old enough to hear the answers to? Or, I think the part where it just was like, I felt heartbroken was, and this was in 2016 in the book. She shares how her son asked, like, is daddy afraid of us because he is white and not a person of color? And this little boy's understanding without being prompted, based on what he was seeing in the world around him, were just that white people were afraid and white people were lashing out because they were afraid. And his daddy was different from him. And I'm just like, oh, that was really tough. And she dealt with it so head on in the book. And I just like, I was like, I want everybody I know to read this because like.
And I think it goes back to like what you were saying, Jen, about the children's book.
Mm-hmm.
When you deal with these hard issues as a parent or as a children's author, and you're not talking down to these kids, but you really have to boil down a very complicated subject to its essence.
Yeah.
And also to keep an optimistic tone.
Yeah.
Because
and to have a son and this time, this political climate, who's living in New York City, who is hearing and seeing all sorts of things. I think the book takes place from like 2016 to like 2018, sometime in that range, like that's hard, and a lot of our people out there might have kids in that age range where they're 6, 7, 8 years old and really curious. And yeah, it's really challenging to answer, but she does a beautiful job talking to her son about what it means to be a person of color in America. And it's like part memoir, sort of sharing her experience and all of the microaggressions that she has faced throughout her life and all of the bigotry that she's felt. And she illustrates a lot of those examples. She peppers the whole story with them. So you just get this full picture of what it means for her and her experience. And it's, it's very eye-opening and heartbreaking, I think is a good word for it, Katie. Yeah. But beautiful. I loved it.
I did too. I recommend it, even if you're not a fan of graphic novels.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you have a hard talk you need to have with your kids, have it.
I like how she talks about her family and how her family was very divided through the 2016 election, as I know thousands of families out there were, mine included. It was a divisive time, and it's she handles that as best as she can. But I know there are a lot of families that are still, struggling with that division between families based on your political views or personal views. And it's a lot of tension, and kids pick up on that tension. For sure. So if you've experienced any of that, you might enjoy this book too. But
excellent. So did you guys have any more?
I feel like we're running short on time. We did have one more that we both started reading and really loved, but neither one of us has finished it yet. But real quick?
Yeah, okay. Hold it up and speed talk.
Well, okay, so it's on my phone. I'm listening to it. Do you want me to show you?
I can share them.
Oh, there you go.
There it is. Oh, good. You've got it. Nice. So it's Gods of Jade and Shadow. There you can see that.
Who wrote that one?
So that one is by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And it's very different from the books we've mentioned in this conversation. It's about a girl in 1920s Mexico in a small city in southern Mexico. She's somewhat poor. She's living with her cruel grandfather. And she opens a chest in her grandfather's room one day. And inside of this chest, it always has a padlock on it. And she's able to unlock it and open it up. And she reawakens the spirit of a Mayan god.
Very big departure there.
It's quite a departure. And it comes to life. So he's the god of the underworld, Shilbaba. Shilbaba. I think that's how you pronounce it.
I have no idea.
Yeah. And his name is Hunkame. And he wants to rule the underworld again, but he has to find his eye. So his eye and his ear have been stolen, and they've been scattered in the mortal world. And so he goes on a journey with this girl. Her name is Cassiopeia, and they have to go find his body parts so he can be restored to his fullness, and then he can take ownership of the underworld again. It's super good. I know it sounds maybe a little out, but it's engrossing.
It's based on real Mayan legends.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it sounds fun.
Yes, it is fun. Okay, and there's never been a book written like this, from my knowledge.
Really?
You go on.
How many stories have you heard of that invoke Mayan spirits, that go on this crazy journey, and it's got this element of romance and the 1920s jazz era? I mean, this is it's a really special book. I'm sorry.
Sounds like a movie with The Rock in it.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Could be. Just in the past year, I've gotten so into fantasy. I don't know. I think I read, I don't know what book it was that exactly inspired it, but I've just been craving it. And I read her other book, Mexican Gothic. That was the most recent one. I think it came out in the past couple of years. So when I saw, I was actually picked this up at the Cascade Library, and I saw just her name on the shelf, and I knew that it was going to be good just based on that. And then within I'm 8 chapters in, and I'm just like, yep. It's it's like a page turner. It's really good.
Definitely.
I have so many books I have to read.
Yes.
So thanks for the more, and it's 7:00. So, but I want to tell everyone next Tuesday I will not be here, but I have an amazing guest star, Miss Vanessa Pettigrove Wallstra is going to be here, and she's just fabulous book talk. But not only that, but she's bringing with her Heather Wood-Gramsma. So if you've never seen Vanessa and Heather together doing book talks, please tune in next Tuesday, and you will say, Penny, stop doing this now. They are great. Thank you all, and see you next Tuesday.
All right. Thanks, Penny. Bye.